I just bought this Westsail 32. Her name is Pooh Bear. At first I wasn't fond of the name, but after cruising over 400 miles from Savanah Georgia to Stuart Florida, I think the name fits. She's a little slow, kind of plump, but very good-natured. Pooh is well outfitted for long-distance cruising with a wind vane, electric autopilot, radar, AIS, solar and wind turbine, life raft, and much more. The original owner bought her in 1977 as an unfinished kit and then spent the next 4 years building a beautiful custom interior. The galley has pressurized hot and cold running water, a 3-burner propane stove with oven, small fridge freezer, and ample storage space. I really like the dedicated navigation station, which is not typical of most Westsail 32s. The salon has a drop-leaf table amidships with settees and pilot berths port and starboard. And the forward cabin was designed as a small workshop, which allows for a larger than average head. Before I made the decision to buy her, I took Pooh out for a short sea trial with the previous owner and inspected the sails. Of course, the final approval had to come from my half-mate, Mr. Wilson. He seemed thoroughly pleased, so we closed the deal. After spending the holidays in Tennessee with my family, I stocked the galley and shoved off from Savannah on January 7th. I couldn't have asked for a better day for my inaugural sail with Pooh Bear, and soon we were cruising down the Georgia coast. It didn't take long before we were greeted by Neptune's messengers, and this was the first of many dolphin encounters on the trip. It almost seemed as if they were attracted to the boat. After about 40 miles of smooth sailing, we arrived at Sapelo Sound and dropped the hook off of Blackbeard Island. There was something special about being anchored with Pooh Bear for the first time. It was a beautiful evening, and I got to try out her dinghy, Piglet. The following morning, I got an early start and cruised a little over 60 miles along the coast before I finally crossed over into Florida and got a slip at the Fernandina Harbor Marina. The alternator had stopped working the previous day, so I spent a couple of days diagnosing the problem, buying tools, and eventually replacing the belt, which had been damaged. I also picked up an owner's manual for Pooh Bear in a historic downtown that was adjacent to the marina. After the temporary pause, we started motoring down Florida's ICW, where we encountered the first of many bridges. It's always a little nerve-wracking passing under bridges, even when you know you've got around 10 feet of clearance. After a beautiful night's anchorage at St. John's Inlet, the weather turned ugly, so we spent another 2 nights at anchor, since I was unfamiliar with navigating the Bear, and the ICW can be challenging for deeper draft boats. Eventually, we were back on our way, continually flanked by the opulent houses which line the ICW, and frequently accompanied by our finned friends. One of the biggest challenges was avoiding the numerous crab pots which line the channel and occasionally drift directly into the recommended route. Unfortunately, Wilson wasn't much help, as he seems to be constantly looking in the wrong direction. The boat traffic was starting to get a little heavier, and we ended up getting a mooring ball at the St. Augustine Municipal Marina. We took Piglet over to the dinghy dock just in time to catch a SpaceX Falcon Heavy launch from Cape Canaveral 100 miles away. It was impressive. The following day was my 52nd birthday, and I was happy to be doing one of the things I love, spending time on the water. Wilson was clearly ready to party. After a pleasant day of cruising, I anchored Pooh Bear near Daytona Beach and had a few birthday beers and a tasty dinner. However, the day after my birthday, signs of the challenges of navigating the ICW were all around, and around noon I had a hard grounding even though I was following the recommended course. This was actually the second grounding of the trip. Luckily, I was able to get off the sneaky shoal without assistance and spent the rest of the day watching the iconic NASA Vehicle Assembly Building grow ever larger until we finally arrived at Titusville Marina a few miles from the Cape. As luck would have it, there was another SpaceX launch, this time of a Falcon 9 rocket, just as we were getting ready to leave the marina. A special thanks goes out to my friend Lisa C. for giving me the heads up. Literally. Although I was making good progress, I was mostly going into the wind and wasn't able to do much sailing, although I was jealous of the boats that could. While I was anchored near Savanah, Florida, I started hearing blowhole noises all around the boat, and for the next hour, a pod of dolphins surrounded Pooh Bear. I wondered if they were trying to tell me something. As I got closer to the St. Lucie Inlet, the boat traffic really picked up, especially small watercraft. I had to be on high alert as they were frequently darting across the front of the boat. Then I realized that one of these daredevils was Sam Holmes, a sailor I follow on YouTube. But instead of crossing oceans, he was windsurfing on the ICW. It didn't seem like a good time to try to get his autograph. Unfortunately, after 2 weeks of getting Pooh Bear into position for a crossing, I ran into some problems. Pooh Bear had developed an oil leak, which had me concerned, but I still thought I could nurse her across. But then I discovered a closed bridge just north of the Lake Worth Inlet that thwarted my attempt during a good weather window on January 21st, exactly 1 year from my first crossing on dog years. And lastly, I was simply out of time and needed to return to my teaching obligations at Wasson. So, after a nice anchorage off of Jensen Beach, I started cruising up the St. Lucie River to a yachting center where I could dock the boat and hopefully get her oil leak fixed. I was joined by a fellow cruiser I met in the Bahamas, Kelly Calvert, who helped me navigate the St. Lucie Lock. It was disappointing to have to park Pooh Bear, but I knew that it was the best decision to achieve my goals of getting her to Grand Bahama safely and begin the journey of getting to know her. I ended up taking the ferry back to Grand Bahama, and the rough ride reminded me of how challenging it can be to cross the Gulf Stream. I'm currently back in Freeport having fun with my McGregor 26M dog years, but I'm counting the days until I'm reunited with my new love. Her name is Pooh Bear.